Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News, and we've got one of our executive interviews of junior mining company execs, and this is a new company for an interview, which is Aztec Minerals, and Aztec came on my radar screen back in April. They announced some pretty spectacular stuff. Silver of 3,477 grams over 1.52 meters within a zone of 733 grams per ton, silver over 7.6 meters, part of a broader intercept of 0.58 grams per ton gold and 72 grams per ton silver over 125 meters at their Tombstone project. And then just yesterday, they announced that they intersected 2.82 grams of gold and 176 grams of silver, which works out to a 5-gram gold equivalent over 36 meters, with 6.45 grams per ton gold and 408 grams per ton silver for a gold equivalent of 11.55 grams per ton of gold over 15.5 meters. Simon, it looks like you got a pretty serious project there, man.
Yeah, hey, thanks for the chance to come on your show and introduce the company to obviously to yourself and your listeners a little bit. And we've had some really fantastic results over the past 6 weeks. Obviously starting with hole one of our core drilling program that we just wrapped up back in late April that was reported. And then of course yesterday with the nice intersection towards the south central part of the zone that we're drilling in. But it's funny, I'm just looking at my little list here of drill holes, and those holes are actually our third and fifth best holes that we've drilled over the past 3 years out of our top 10 list. So we've had a lot of really nice hits previously. More so in the bulk tonnage over wider widths type realm. And I think the high grade silver that we tagged back in April was just sort of a good reminder of what we have here and the potential to really get some more high grade silver as we drill deeper in this system. And I might just maybe introduce the project a little bit here and what it is.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, so the Tombstone Silver District was, it was obviously most famous for the gunfight that happened there between Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, right? And then the Cowboys back in the 1800s. But it was a silver mining town with a big population and just on the road down to the famous porphyry at Bisbee. So it's a historic mining town and saw about 32 million ounces of silver production back between 1880 and World War II. Most of it, though, really concentrated around 1910 to 15, when one of the mines in the district called the Contention Mine saw about half of that production come from it. And these guys were mining down 1,000 feet or 10 levels. And they were, we think presumably mining high grade enriched zones of silver in and around the water table. So that's been the focus of our recent drilling is trying to drill down to some of these deeper depths that the old timers were drilling. Now, if you're following me here, they were high grade underground mining down to 1,000 feet in 1910 to 15. It was a big operation for its day. They were dewatering down about 400 feet and they had a massive water pumping operation there. Yeah. So the mine ultimately ceased to operate in 1915, not, we believe, due to the exhaustion of ore, but it was really due to technical breakdown of the pumping. So there were, as we understand, 5 catastrophic failures of the pump house, and the fifth one was just the whole thing burnt down. So the project was abandoned at that point, and then really only saw limited small scale mining up until fast forwarding all the way through to the 1980s when a private company came in, and instead of reopening the underground mine, they went in and basically just heap leached the shallow expressions of that high grade system between 1980 and 85, and they had quite a bit more mining planned, but due to declining commodity pricing in the late 80s and early 90s, that fell by the wayside, and really saw not a lot of development up until we started re-drilling it back in 2020 when we were optioning this project from another company. We've now completed that option, and we formed a 75-25 joint venture with our new partners, who are private investors out of the United States, but we control the joint venture and work with them. And our goals when we formed the joint venture were really twofold. One was to follow up, of course, on the deeper, the high grade, the potentially, the silver and polymetallic system at depth, but also to see, what happened with the 1980s open pit heap leaching operation, being mindful of the fact that the typical open pit heap leach operating grade in this part of the world, in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, northwestern Mexico, would be, in the range of maybe a half gram to a gram. So, we were hoping to expand on that in the pit, the existing pit called the contention pit, and our first run of drilling hit several holes that were 2 and 3 times that grade. So we then went ahead and grid drilled it in 2021 and hit a number of wonderful holes, including 65.5 meters averaging 3.4 grams gold equivalent.
Wow.
Another one hit 96 meters at 2.2 grams. Another one hit 32 meters at 6.3, 70 meters of 2.3. So we were hitting and expanding in all directions, virtually east, west, and at depth in this pit. So we've really focused in on expanding the pit mineralization. And that was, up until the end of, call it, 2021. This year, though, we've elected to go in with a diamond drill and start while we're attacking 2 targets at once. So we're continuing to drill out the pit, trying to widen it, trying to extend it at depth. But now we have a core drill, which is allowing us to drill deeper into the limestones. And that's where our first hole hit that bonanza grade silver, just underneath the footprint of where we were able to drill previously with the RC drill. So it's all starting to come together now. And it's really a great project for us. It's in a really mining friendly county down in Arizona called Cochise County. It is, it's a town that has a small population that is looking for high paying jobs. The claims they're on private land. So we own this land. They're historic patented mining claims, which, for listeners or investors that are familiar with the United States versus Canada, and private land is typically preferred for potential permitting, as opposed to government controlled land. So we're really excited about this project, and we have 3 holes yet to come from this current round of drilling, and then once we get those out, we're going to sit down and plan our next steps. But given the response in the market to our drill results, we expect to keep drilling this project going forward.
A couple of things came out of that news release that popped out to me was that it looks like you're talking about an epithermal vein system as a low sulfidation, as well as a CRD potential.
Yeah, so that, and again, backing up a little bit to how Aztec specifically got involved in this project, but our late chairman, the famous silver entrepreneur Bradford Cook, he acquired this project when he was the chairman of Aztec and founder of it a few years ago. And his initial excitement and our initial excitement was to explore the potential similarities to the Taylor Hermosa discovery made by Arizona Mining, just about 40 miles to our southwest in the town of Hermosa. And that obviously was a famous discovery that made investors a huge return during a pretty rotten time in the market between 2015 and 18.
I
So
know
that
this
was our
story well because I had featured it in my reports when it was like a 50-cent stock. So yeah, it was a pretty good pick.
Oh, amazing. I didn't know that, but yeah, congratulations on that. Being early on Arizona Mining would be huge. And so we looked at a bunch of projects, and the one that stuck out was Tombstone, given its similar geological setting to Hermosa Taylor. And it's a similar setup where there's a high grade silver system near surface, and then in the oxides, and then there's this 2 kilometer thick limestone bed below the water table, which could potentially host these high-grade mantos, which were being mined at Tombstone 100+ years ago. So we've done some interesting work on that front as well. We've run some natural source AMT over the district, and that has identified two really large conductive anomalies that sit in the limestone layers where we assume the limestone is below the water table about 600 meters deep. So to put that into context, the Taylor Deeps, which is the really significant discovery below Hermosa, those were discovered at I think 1.1 kilometers below the surface. So we're at about half that depth where our geophysical targets lie, and there's two quite large ones. They're about 400-500 meters in height and 500-600 meters in width. So obviously we don't know if they're mineralized or not, but they are there, and we believe that our geophysical model is valid. It's picked up a lot of the cultural interference at surface, and it's picked up some other structures that we know are there. So we think it's a valid model. And not only do we have this geophysical target, but we also have one historic drill hole from 1989 drilled by a company called Santa Fe Pacific Mining. They did about 5,000 meters of core drilling in the late 80s looking for a CRD system, but their drilling was limited to the perimeter of the open pit that we've been drilling in. So back in that time period, this was a really fresh mining operation, and they had no interest in the open pit heap leach aspect of the project, so they limited their drilling to the perimeter. So you can see that in our presentation. We have some of those drill holes plotted on, I think it's slide 17, and you'll notice that they're quite a bit away from the main contention structure, which is right lying underneath the open pit, striking about 1 kilometer north south. But one hole towards the north end of the pit, this one's called T8, it did go under the pit to that target depth. Now, bear in mind, it's about 500 meters north of where we have our AMT survey and our anomaly. So it's well away from our primary target, but at a similar depth, so at about 650 meters downhole, they reported to have intersected 7.16 meters, averaging 9.1% lead zinc, 0.6 copper, 32 grams of silver, and a sniff of gold. That's getting into the Taylor Hermosa style of mineralization in terms of grade, and at half the depth, and for us, it's 500 meters plus away from our primary target. So that's why we got into Tombstone in the first place. Obviously, it's a little bit tricky drilling down to those depths in this part of Arizona. The rock near surface is super broken up. This is a historic, underground mining district, so there's, multiple stopes and tunnels to contend with. Yeah, there's a lot going on. So that's why we've kind of worked our way up to those targets. We've done the geophysical work. Now we've drilled with both RC and core, so we're getting a good handle on how to actually get down to 600-700 meters below the surface, and it's looking like it'll be a combination of pre-collaring with the reverse circulation drill, and then as far as we can go, hopefully 300 meters, and then completing the hole in the limestones with the diamond bit. So that's to come. But
you brought up a few really good points there that I want to unpack a bit. The first one is Bradford Cook. I knew Brad, and he was a true gentleman and a serious exploration guy, and spent a lot of time down in Mexico working on epithermal vein systems. So the fact that he helped pick this project, I think, is one good aspect of the project. And another thing you brought up is the CRD story. One of my sponsors is a company called I80 Gold that's run by Ewan Downey. And they've had tremendous success, kind of parallel to what you're talking about. In Eureka, Nevada, there was a lot of historical CRD mining from the 1860s to the 1960s. And then the focus went to oxides in Nevada, and the area got kind of abandoned. And then on a similar path, I80 went in there with, I think, one hole was historically drilled with CRD mineralization that they didn't even assay for the lead and the zinc. And they went in there, did that, and lit up their excitement. And then they went and found a bonanza grade CRD with an overprint of high grade gold in it. And so I'm hearing a lot of the same kind of story as what you guys have.
Yeah, and I haven't done a deep dive into I80, but others have mentioned it to me about the great success that they've been having there. And I do think you're right that we have a very similar style potential upside as they obviously uncovered with their project. So, although we've been hitting, this is what makes Aztec, I think, unique. I mean, we're hitting these grades near surface that are exceptional, almost bordering onto the high grade underground style of grade. But in oxides, shallow with very little strip to speak of, and we haven't yet, uncovered this, if you want to call it blue sky upside in the underground potential. So we're still early. Like, we've proven a lot, so I think it's de-risked in that sense. It's not a pure, drill and pray drill shot, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but we have more than that. We have a real we think we have a real deposit shaping up in terms of heap leach potential, and then with this added upside, and that's actually very similar with our other project down in Mexico, where we have in eastern Sonora, we have a gold copper porphyry target, big 3,600 meter project with 11 separate targets on it. But what we've done there is we've focused on a gold oxide discovery where we've drilled off about a kilometer of strike as well. And that, while we haven't yet proven out the big large tonnage copper gold system, we have proven out the beginnings of a fairly large tonnage potential heap leach gold system. And our drilling there last year, I mean, the reason that we were not in Tombstone as much last year was because we drilled almost 8,000 meters in Sonora at the Cervantes project, and all of those holes hit actually some nice heap leachable grades in a bit of a different setting along a ridge line with good metallurgy that we've started to prove out already with some bottle roll testing with good recoveries of the oxides in the high 80s percentage wise, and in a couple of tests that we've done. But that drilling, which was announced between, call it, February through June of 2022, led to us getting a strategic investment from Alamos Gold. So we've got now, almost a 10% shareholding by a very, very well-known and well-performing mid-tier miner based in Toronto, obviously, who's one of their primary projects is the Mulatos district, which was the founding of their company and now one of their primary operations. But they're just 50 kilometers away from us to the east in Sonora. So, I highlight that, we have two projects. They're different, and, not all companies focus on two projects at once, but we think that there's similar in the sense of value creation going forward is based on almost, focusing on some of the lower hanging fruit, proving out the lower risk to mine material, which would be the heap leach oxide gold material. And then, as we build value through the drill bit and through study, we have many opportunities to go and test these really truly blue sky targets at depth, being copper gold in Mexico and CRD polymetallic sulfide mineralization at Tombstone.
Well, I live in Zacatecas, Mexico, so I have a fair bit of experience with epithermal vein systems, low sulfidation epithermal vein systems, and what you're hitting there in the epithermal vein is very exciting to me because one, it definitely looks like you've tagged the boiling zone of an epithermal vein system. Secondly, that these things often appear in clusters. And finally, that a lot of in a cluster will often not make its way to surface. Mag Silver's Juanicipio and Valdecanis veins are perfect examples of that. But sometimes you can find those when you're drilling off known veins. So I really like that aspect of the story, but then I'm also very interested in your CRD targets and your stuff in Sonora because there's a lot of big mines up there.
Yeah, and then you're getting all that for 28 million market cap today, thanks to
Yes.
this sleepy market that we find ourselves in.
See, yes, absolutely. Well, you know, when I see the market like this, where there's, you got gold at 1975-ish, and nobody believes that a bull market started in November of 2022, and signs that nobody believes it is every time there's a whiff of a correction in gold, the gold stocks are back to record low valuations. And as a contrarian, that gets me really excited, Simon. There's an old saying that you want to buy low and sell high. Well, the first trick is to buy low. Unfortunately, everybody says that's their goal, but they don't do it. And which is why I do a lot of these shows and try to bang the drum and put together a good menu for investors to look at. And I'm really impressed with what you guys have.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we're obviously really lucky to have these two projects, and I agree with your contrarian sentiment there. I'm obviously the same way. And I agree. I think we saw the lows were, to me, they were pretty obviously in September of 22, right? I mean, I think we hit what, 1635, and then you're right, we hit
September, October, and early November, there was kind of a triple bottom and then a big breakout in early November.
really strong triple bottom, and we've obviously struggled the last few weeks, but that's to be expected. It's consolidation, and
Nothing
I,
goes like this. They
it would be
always
nice
have.
if it did.
So Simon, when I talk about undervalued situations, I think important part is catalysts. So let's close on some of your catalysts that you have coming up.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So obviously undervaluation won't close unless you prove out more. And I think we've got a fairly good schedule of news planned for the remainder of the year and into next year. And if you look back to our last 3 years of news, I think we've done a decent job of keeping the market up to date in kind of reasonable increments as to what we've been up to. But going forward, we have 3 more drill holes coming from Tombstone. So 3 more chances to hit some high grade. I don't know what the results are, obviously, but we will see. And even if they're not great, it's another chance to highlight what we've already found in the previous 50 holes. Then going forward, we do have plans to drill another program in Cervantes in Mexico. We've got a window of time where we can drill there this summer, and we plan to do approximately a little bit over 2,000 meters of reverse circulation drilling, and building on the last core drilling program that we completed in Cervantes back in October of 22. And then fast forwarding to September, October, that's when we really want to get back to work at Tombstone with a combination program of both RC and core drilling, where we can, one, continue to step out in the contention open pit zone, and two, drill deeper into the limestones and start to uncover that potential CRD story as well. So that will be coming third quarter, fourth quarter. We'll be busy on both projects.
And what's the cash position? And maybe talk a little bit about your share structure.
Yeah, the cash position as of the last quarter, which was March 31st, was about 1.7 million working capital. And then in terms of our share structure, we have just shy of 95 million issued and outstanding. We have a couple of large shareholders in terms of Alamos Gold being our largest shareholder, and a couple of gold funds out of the east coast of the US have come in recently. So we're starting to get good interest from larger investors. And warrants are about 16 million warrants at 40 cents, and about half of those roll off in November, and there's about 8 million options set. So for 2 projects, I think, that are nearing the resource stage post discovery but still being expanded, I think we're in good shape at having under 100 million out.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and any other key team members?
Yeah, so my experience has been in the capital markets. I'm a former broker. I worked at Salman Partners and Lead Financial in Vancouver. I also worked as in equity research at those firms. And then for the last 6, 7 years, I've been raising capital for junior exploration companies and planning and executing on drill programs. I'm not a geologist, but I'm up from the financial side of the business. And then our team has a couple of very well-known geologists on it. The head of our technical committee is Mark Rebliati, who's a Canadian Mining Hall of Famer. So
Yes.
he's on the board and he's the chairman of our technical committee. He's quite involved in our exploration efforts. And then Patricio Veras, another well-known geologist from Vancouver who's sold a couple of companies for big exits. And then our VPX is based in Denver, Colorado, and his name is Allan David Heil. And he has been involved in the exploration industry for I think about 40 years, and he's former exploration manager for Southern Peru Copper, and he spent some years with Barrick in Peru and Colombia, and also in Nevada, and now in Arizona and Sonora. So he's been a great addition to our team a couple of years ago. So we have some great senior geologists involved, some great junior geologists as well. We've got a good staff that work for us on both projects, and some good financial people involved. So it's a good team all around.
You left on a good note there, because Southern Peru copper was another pick of mine early that ended up being taken over. And so say thank you to your team member there
For sure.
for making it into my personal Hall of Fame, Mining
Wonderful.
Hall of
That's another
Fame.
great touch point. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing how it's a small world we live in with the mining sector.
Sure is.
Well, Simon, thank you very much for joining us. It's really been nice to hear a new story to talk about, and especially one that's delivering with the truth machine in your drilling.
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity. It was great to connect. I'm glad to hear that there's more people following the story. It's exciting.
Well, I'm going to close it off and we can have a chat at the other end.
Sounds good.
All right, folks. Well, we got a new company to follow in Aztec, and I really like what I hear. A $28 million valuation company. They got money. They've got a good team. They've done great. They've got great results with the drilling. Several targets to drill on. Looks like they're going to have great news flow. And this is the key kind of company that I'm looking for as I believe we're at an inflection point for the price of gold, and especially for the junior mining stocks. And I think that we're not very far from a lot of new investors coming into the space, generalist investors. And when they do, there's not a big menu to choose from. And this is the kind of company that I think will get that kind of attention in a stronger market for junior mining stocks. And glad to have them to cover now. And as always, my shows are for information purposes only. Speak with your financial advisors and do your homework. Go to the website, check out their news releases, check out their corporate presentations, check out those cross sections of what they're hitting in the drilling, how it relates to the historical work. And I think you'll find a company well worth doing that homework on. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.